Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event.
Oh, yeah!
Are you ready?
And now, coming live from Wrestling-News.net and presented by Spreaker, it's Main Event Madness. Madness Unleashed. You can call into the show by calling 305-600-4708 and tweet us during the show using the hashtag MEM Radio Live. And with that, here are your hosts for tonight, John Curry and Mark Madison. How is everybody doing out there? Welcome to the February 17th edition of the broadcast, guys. Thank you so much for taking time out of your nights to come hang out with us and spend your Wednesday night hearing what we've got to say, our occasional banter, our occasional, I don't know if you'd say hijinks is the right word, but, just coming to see what we've got to say. Really appreciate it, guys. And before we get any further, I'm joined tonight by my usual co-host, my partner in crime that you guys can hear with me each and every week, straight out of the land up north. He is a columnist for TGRWrestling.net and TheRichest.com, Mark Madison. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, buddy. How are you? It's frigid.
Yes, it is absolutely frigid, although better than it was about a week ago.
Yeah.
And also with us tonight, this is part 2 of our co-host auditions. So we've got another auditioner, I guess, if that's the right word. He's also a writer for TGRWrestling.net, Hank McAllen. Hank, welcome to Main Event Madness, man.
Thanks so much, guys. Really looking forward to it. Very pumped up about being on the show with you guys, and I appreciate you giving me the time.
Not a problem, man. Looking forward to see what you can do. Excited for it, like I was telling you earlier. And, guys, if you want to chat with us during the show, use the hashtag on Twitter, MEM Live, not the one that I had during the intro that was kind of being lazy, since, Aaron's not on the show anymore. And I've been sitting there having intros for, I think, like a month now. And I finally paid attention to it. Yes, we do. And he will be with us this Sunday for our pregame show. Cheap, if I can, a little bit of cheap shilling here. We're going to be live at 5 p.m. Eastern on Sunday for our Fastlane pregame show. And if Hank, if you're available, if you want to come on that.
I am definitely available, and if I wasn't, I'd make myself available. Absolutely.
Awesome. And, guys, you guys will be able to check that out. Also, Wrestling-News.net, which we are streaming live on at this moment. But if you guys want to chat with us, use the hashtag MEMLive on Twitter. And you can also call us on the air after 9 o'clock, after about 10 after 9. We'll, if anybody wants to call in, wait till then. Which, we've had like a staggering 2 phone calls, so I'm not really concerned about it. But the number to call in is 305-600-4708. That's 305-600-4708. Or also show us some love. Give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/Main Event Madness, and post on there. We'll get back to you guys as soon as we can. And we got a pretty loaded show tonight, I gotta say, guys. We got current Global Force Wrestling heavyweight champion Magnus is going to be on. We're gonna have an exclusive interview with him in about 25 minutes from now. Some shocking news this week, and Wade Barrett is leaving WWE. We're gonna talk about that in the next hour. Brie Bella announced what several of wrestling fans have been talking and hoping for seemingly forever. Brie Bella is leaving WWE, and the talk is that Barrett is the first of many to come. Apparently, a lot of people are upset with WWE. And we got our Rawsome moments. Hank, our Rawsome moments are our top moments from this week's edition of Monday Night Raw. And also, seemingly, the Cruiserweight division is returning to WWE. We're going to talk about that. And, of course, Evan Ginsberg, the associate producer of the Oscar-nominated film The Wrestler, starring Mickey Rourke. He's going to be with us at 9:30 for another edition of Ginsberg's Gab. Looking forward to that. But, I'm talking far too much, I think, for the beginning of this show. So I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to throw this over to Mark in a second. Rawsome moments. I love this towards the end of the show, and I may not be the only one. Actually, I can guarantee you I'm not the only one. Dean Ambrose teased turning on Roman Reigns. Mark, did that excite you? Did that get you excited for the pay-per-view Sunday? Or do you think it was just a red herring?
Well, it could be just a red herring, but I think they're keeping us motivated to watch it. So the Kevin Owens title reign definitely led in the direction of thinking, Dean's going to do something. There's no reason for him not to want to pursue this title. But sometimes when things are too obvious, way too obvious, that's when they don't happen. It's when you don't expect them to happen that was the more likely time that it was going to happen, right? So, I don't know. I don't see that being it, unless stranger things have happened, but I don't see it. There's been too much focus on Ambrose and seems his pursuit of Lesnar, but it'd be interesting to see what happens come Sunday. Hank, what do you think?
Well, I personally am hoping that something does happen to the point where we end up getting Reigns and Lesnar at Mania, and we have Ambrose going for the title. Like you said, every time you think that WWE is taking you down a path and it's the obvious, he's going to turn, he hasn't turned. It feels like he's going to be turning. He thought everybody was going to be the guy who's going to turn on the Shield, and he never did. So it's interesting to see where they're going with this. I don't think that they would put Ambrose in the main event against Triple H. I would love to see it. I think the fan base would love to see it. I think that that's the vibe that they're getting from the fans right now, or the universe, as they like to call them. But I was kind of juiced to see it. And it kind of, you saw Reigns when he was leaving the ring, he's kind of looking like, is this real? Is it not real? Even though they had the chuckle. So I was kind of juiced up to see that happen.
I was excited to see, a somewhat more serious Dean Ambrose. Like, Reigns looked shocked, like, oh my God, like, why would you do that? And Ambrose is looking at him like, you surprised? Just to see a little bit more intensity and a little bit more ferocity, it seemed like, just from that look in Dean Ambrose's face, after losing the Intercontinental title earlier in the show, it kind of seemed like, again, I agree with Mark that it's most likely a red herring, but it kind of seemed like it was a little bit of Ambrose snapping a little bit, like the straw that broke the camel's back, like, well,
when are you going to take me seriously, Roman? I mean, that's maybe the impression. What, you don't think I'm not capable? Do you think I'm not good enough? I mean, they could easily go and skewer it in that way. He doesn't want to be a sidekick. He joked it off, right? But there's no inkling that Roman doesn't take him seriously as a competitor and that their friendship is always first. We play with these ideas all the time, but I'd be very surprised still, even with the teasers.
I'd love to see it happen. I mean, I think it's ultimately, like I said before, they're going to turn on one another one way or the other. But to what John said before, I like seeing a little bit more of a serious side to Ambrose. Sometimes when he's in the ring, he's so accomplished. If you look at his stuff from NXT, the feud he had with Seth Rollins, a.k.a. Tyler Black, they had such a great feud technically that sometimes when he's in the ring now, he kind of goofs it up a little bit, sometimes overplays it a bit. So maybe we're getting into a more deeper, darker side of him now, which I'd like to see. Because if he's in reincarnation of Terry Funk and Brian Pillman, this could be heading down a very good path for him.
Very good comparison stuff to make. With a scotch of early Roddy Piper, maybe?
I'm sorry?
Maybe with just an early touch of Roddy Piper in him?
Absolutely. I could definitely see it. The guy's a natural. He can cut a promo, and he could rip you to shreds when he wants to. And I think that we are going to see big things happen from him. That's why it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if we see him against Triple H at Mania. It would surprise me, but it wouldn't shock me.
Now, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in this process, I mean, to get your guys' perspective, has the booking of Brock Lesnar looked weaker because Ambrose is in your face and he can say what he can and there's that bravado about him and then he can walk off and, Brock maybe gets the final word one way, but to have somebody eagerly just stand up to him, tell him what he thinks and walk off. I don't know if that's not necessarily this week, but I'm just saying, does somebody else's booking get hurt at the expense of Ambrose looking better?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Brock has been built so strongly and so efficiently since returning to WWE 4 years ago that, I mean, to have a little bit of the spotlight taken off of him, I kind of feel is a little bit refreshing, that they they kind of make Ambrose the focal point of this triple threat. Reigns is in there, okay, he's got the rematch clause. Brock's in there because he's Brock frickin' Lesnar, but I love the fact that the main focus of this rivalry has been focusing on Dean Ambrose and showcasing that Dean Ambrose does belong in the main event. That he's not not going to be the one who didn't win the world title of the Shield, or at least, the weaker one of the Shield. And to see where this goes, do we get a curveball going into WrestleMania? And does Dean Ambrose get the world title shot? Or could they even go a triple threat route of Dean versus Reigns versus Triple H? Even if Reigns wins, Ambrose takes him out after, and Hunter rewards him, with a title match at WrestleMania. That frees Brock up to go after Bray Wyatt, and the whole Dean Ambrose Chris Jericho feud for the IC title doesn't look like, at least at this point in time, is going to happen, unfortunately. But I mean, I'd like to see some crappy finish. I know that's like cursing WWE, because we get those on a weekly basis. But I'd like to see some kind of shady finish at Fastlane with Jericho and AJ, and then have them try to do a do-over for their rubber match at say, WrestleMania. I think that would be an interesting thing. But I think the dynamic of a triple threat match between Reigns, Ambrose, and Triple H, I don't think anybody's even really talked about that too much, or even thought that was a possibility. But stranger things have definitely happened in WWE, especially when you look at, a time like when Daniel Bryan got forced into the main event. But what do you guys think about the possibility of there being a triple threat?
Would this be 3 years in a row, right? If they did that?
Indirectly last year would have been the second, yeah. It would have been.
Because you had Reigns. See, that's why I would like to see Reigns and Brock go, because there's unfinished business with them. Neither one of them pinned the other last year at Mania. It was Rollins who got the win. So there's unfinished business between those two at WrestleMania. That's an intriguing storyline you can go with. If you go the triple threat, yeah, I would definitely think you could pull off a great match. But you're just replacing Rollins with Ambrose, and like you said, John, Ambrose right now is a hot ticket. He might steal a lot of thunder in that.
I think, the story of this obviously is who's going to go face Triple H at WrestleMania, who's going to get the WWE title match, but I think, the underlying story is, the evolution of Dean Ambrose, and, is this the year that he breaks out and gets the main event push finally? I mean, even though he was in a few title matches last year, is this the year that he bursts on the scene, he breaks through that glass ceiling and says, hey, not only do I belong, but I'm taking this, and you guys aren't taking it from me, and run with it. Whether or not that's as a heel, whether or not that's as a babyface, I don't know. But go ahead.
I don't see a heel run working for Ambrose, just because if he was to turn on Reigns, how many of the fans would be celebrating that? I mean, and it wouldn't work probably the way they would hope. I mean, that's my perspective. Because if he turns on Reigns, that says less about Reigns, and fans who are already indifferent on him are just more likely to cheer. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think all you got to do is look at Monday Night Raw this past week. I mean, how much that crowd popped when Ambrose had him hooked over almost in Dirty Deeds. Hank, what did you think?
Oh, they went nuts. I totally agree. It seems like every week Reigns has lost momentum since the Rumble. He got cheered right up. They finally turned him to the fans. The fans started liking him, and I personally, I like him. I don't understand the hate fest with him. But ever since the Rumble, it's been a downward crawl all the way to the bottom again, where they got to try to rebuild this guy. And maybe the company's seeing, hey, maybe we need to cool our jets on this guy, and maybe we give Ambrose the push, and we try to repackage Reigns in some way, shape, or form. Maybe that's what they do. Maybe that's why I think Ambrose gets the shot against Trips.
maybe it's a Reigns heel turn that would be more likely to convince fans, and having him alive. If they're going to jeer him, give him a reason to jeer him. All right? If that's the case, maybe Reigns ends up eventually selling his soul, if that's what they want to say, and that he backs Triple H. Who knows? But you'd be more convinced by that than the other way around.
Plus, part of me wants to see Triple H retain the title at WrestleMania with all these reports coming out and everything coming out now that Seth Rollins could be returning early. I'd love to see Triple H as champion and Seth Rollins come back. Seth Rollins is going to be white hot as a babyface coming back. And that's got me really excited. And I mean, to Hank's point, and I think I agree with him. The way they've been booking Dean in the last few weeks, and we talked about it going into the Royal Rumble, that this was a 50-50 shot. This was, flipping a coin. This is either going to go absolutely great or it's going to be the dribbling shits. And sure enough, here we are almost a month later, and it blew up in their face. Reigns has consistently, when he came out for the Royal Rumble, boo. Come out for Raw the next night, boo. Come out Raw, as Raw's gone on this month, boo. It's getting louder, and it's getting louder, and, I think, who was it? Was it Steve Austin that said it? The best way that they can get him over, at least at this point now, is turn him heel. Turn him heel, and then turn him babyface, a year, 2 years from now.
I don't know, but given the time frame between now and Mania, how successfully you could turn him heel to get him hot heel by Mania. But
there's no way you can. There's no way you can save Reigns for this. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
do it.
I didn't mean to talk over you, but there's no way. They're either going to have to accept that they're going to be eating shit from the fans if they go through with this and have either a heel winning / crowd displeasing finish for 2 years in a row, or are they going to have to, are they going to have to, pull a wild card, call an audible, and whether that's Dean Ambrose, being put into a triple threat, or, what actually would be really interesting, with all this talk the last few days that he could be making an early return too, what if they threw John Cena?
Oh, God, I hope not.
No. A heel John Cena working with the Authority.
Yeah. That would be huge. That would be... The guy's got amazing healing powers, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I guess, I've seen a lot of reports. I haven't read them, but I've seen a lot of, different Facebook posts and different things all over the last few days that have basically been saying John Cena's trying to make it back for WrestleMania, which... I don't think is necessarily the smartest idea. Maybe when he was 28, that was a good idea. But at 38, not exactly the smartest idea. Not something I would recommend. But hey, I'm not a doctor. If he can do it, more power to you.
Hank, you had concerns though about them running a triple threat again, correct?
Correct.
Okay, maybe you share with everyone what the concern would be then with running it a third year in a row.
It feels like they always seem to me like they hurt the card when they've had ladder match, the Money in the Bank matches, where they just try to shove everybody on the card. Instead of having a beautifully choreographed, great match between two guys, more often than not, when you have a third guy in there, it gets a little cumbersome. Guys will bump into each other. You'll miss spots. A ref will get involved, which I hate seeing ref bumps. Ref will bump. You're probably guaranteed even more so in a three-way dance. I like it, mano a mano, two guys. I'd love to see it in a cage. I'd love to see something different other than the three. I get the three, and I get the reason why you'd need the three, especially maybe this year, to establish Ambrose. If you gave him the title and he could say, I beat Triple H and your former heir apparent and Reigns in a match, I think that's awesome. That's great. But I would just like to see, to me, it gives Ambrose even that much more ability that he did it on his own. He didn't get any help. And I would like to see Reigns and Lesnar settle their score from last year. That's just me, but I could see totally where the three-way dance works. But I would just like to see, we've done this 3 years in a row, guys. Is this going to happen every year? It's kind of start to open it up a little bit too much for me.
So where does the other opportunity for Ambrose moving forward? Say he doesn't come out victorious. What other program can you foresee him moving into, building towards WrestleMania? I mean, there's ample time to build a program.
Right. I think that if you don't put him up against Trips for the title, and you're going to go with Reigns in that spot, I would like to see him maybe. He's right now. He's the middle of the road character. He showed signs of maybe turning to maybe be a heel. Why not have? You could pull off a great match with him and AJ Styles at WrestleMania. That's the match they'd give you. You can also maybe have him involved. Here's interesting. Didn't he lose the Intercontinental title the other night? He did. Where's his rematch clause for that? They never had that. He just lost his title. Shouldn't be able to get a rematch. Already Ziggler's in there. I love golf. But already he's getting the rematch? Okay, granted, Dean's already booked for another match. So you could go a number of ways with him. I'd personally love to see him fight Styles, though, because Jericho, while I've always appreciated Jericho, he's a little older now. The whole Miz thing is all right. But Styles, no matter how they try to paint him as this bulldog rookie, he's one of the best in the world. He's fantastic. He can dance with any of these guys, and he's probably better than 90% of the roster the day he showed up. I'd love to see Ambrose go at it with him. And heel Ambrose turning and not successfully winning at Fastlane, him and Styles with the program at that point.
And we only got a couple minutes before we gotta head over to the interview. But really quick, I want to get you guys' thoughts. Another bunch of reports I've seen are that the Undertaker basically said no to facing Braun Strowman at WrestleMania, and now that his opponent is going to be somebody unexpected. What if Dean goes after the Undertaker?
That'd be cool.
I don't know.
That's pretty much out there. That's in left field.
And then imagine if Dean beats him too. Be only the second man in history, and that could be another stake to claim after WrestleMania. If Brock's somehow involved in the title picture, then you get a feud with Dean and Brock. Kind of kick Reigns to the side. Hey, we're the ones who beat the Undertaker at WrestleMania. What'd you do? Oh, that's right, you lost to Triple H. And I don't know. There's a lot of ways if they turn Dean heel and they can actually do this good. There are a million different directions you can go. And Dean and AJ Styles, like Hank said, would be an amazing match.
I see a Kevin Owens, AJ Styles feud starting up after Fastlane. That's just, they teased it, and the fans were electric just in those few minutes they had that exchange at the Royal Rumble. I think that's an automatic program right away. And Styles would greatly hold that Intercontinental title. Do it justice. Not that Owens isn't, but that's another program. So
absolutely.
But
I don't think Jericho was going to go after Undertaker.
That would be interesting too.
They've never fought, and they're both right around the same age. And
they have had one match, to my knowledge, and that was on SmackDown about 6-7 years ago.
Wow.
They blew their load with it on SmackDown. On a throwaway SmackDown. Oh, by the way, for the first time ever, Chris Jericho versus The Undertaker. Blah, 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 blah. NXT sucks. Okay, cool. I just... Not NXT now. That was, a Michael Cole impression.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to think I'm hating on NXT. I'm not clinically insane here. But as far as pay-per-views go, they've never faced off one-on-one. And
nope.
I think that would be a very interesting one, and another one that, could be at a left field. And, another one, and I've been kind of polling for this for a few weeks now, is Undertaker versus Randy Orton. That's one I've been kind of pulling for. And, we haven't heard for anything from Randy. And
apparently something came out today. I'm not sure if you guys made word of it. Or he made the statement of calling Barrett a coward.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
we'll touch on that
I
one
don't know
for
how much of that is worked, because he knows how to play the media. But if you're going to come out and say something, do something I guess that gets some notice. Seems out
The
of left
one
field
thing the
why.
Viper doesn't like is cowards, and we're definitely going to talk about that in about 45 minutes from now. But we are going to hit commercial break here in a moment, guys. You are listening to Main Event Madness. We are live streaming on wrestling-news.net if you guys want the latest news from around the world, whether it's wrestling results, whether it's rumors, spoilers, the whole nine. Head over to wrestling-news.net. Wayne does a great job over there. And while you're at it, check us out. Or you could check out some archived editions of our old sister show, Working Progress, with a couple good friends of mine, Matt Breeze and Mike Brooker, that did a great job with that. It was a little bit of a fantasy twist on things. They haven't had a show in a little while. Hopefully they can get back on that again. I really enjoyed their shows. But like I said, we're streaming live on wrestling-news.net. Also, if you guys are listening to us on demand and you guys don't want to listen on Spreaker, if you guys have other apps or other ways you guys want to listen, or if you got to head to work and you guys can't listen to us or something like that, look us up after the show: iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Player FM, and YouTube. And also, we're coming soon to BreakingWrestlingNews.com. So, a lot of ways you guys can check us out.
We're all over the place.
Absolutely. But
you can't hold us down.
Absolutely not. The madness is unleashed. But we are hitting commercial break, guys, and when we come back, we're going to have an exclusive interview with none other than Global Force Wrestling Heavyweight Champion Magnus. So stick around, guys. You guys are not going to want to miss that. Mark did a great job with it, guys. We'll be right back. From the associate producer of The Wrestler, and in the tradition of Joe Franklin and Ed Sullivan variety talk shows, Evan Ginsberg's Legends TV features an eclectic mix of legendary million-selling musicians, indie artists deserving greater exposure, and colorful pro wrestlers. Co-hosted by Steve Ludwig of Classic Pop Culture Radio, the show airs live every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern at MadhouseTV.com and LegendsTVNYC.com. Martha Wash, Crown Heights Affair, Lanny Poffo, Nicole Bass, and other legends have joined us. You missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't you dare miss Evan Ginsberg's Legends TV. So you decided to check out Main Event Madness, and now you want to know how you can get the latest news about the show, the hosts, guests, showtimes, and more? Well, the answer's simple. Facebook. Head over to facebook.com/maineventmadness and be a part of the hundreds who have already liked the page and are the first to know everything you could ask about Main Event Madness. Facebook.com/maineventmadness, the official Facebook page for Main Event Madness Radio. Life's about working. Life's about progress. Why not put them together? Well, we did. Working Progress is here, the Fans View podcast. Matt Brees and Mike Rooker take the latest news and rumors in the world of pro wrestling and add in some NFL and more, and add a fantasy spin to it, and you get Working Progress every month, only on MEMnetwork.wix.com/home. From the ashes of our old website comes a fresh new face from Main Event Madness. MEM Network is here. Check out all of your favorite episodes of Main Event Madness, Working Progress, Wrestling's Rope Break, and Evan Ginsberg's Legends TV. More shows to be announced in the future, but check out MEMnetwork.wix.com/home, where the madness runs wild.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is
Live or by... Alright guys, we're here with current Global Force Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, former TNA Impact Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, Nick Aldis. You guys knew him as Magnus in Impact Wrestling. And at this time, I'm going to pass it over to my co-host, Mark Madison, and Nick Aldis, or Magnus.
Nick, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. Hey, last time we had a chance to chat, Nick, actually was probably, I think, around April or May of last year, and a lot has changed for yourself over that course of time. You put out a book, you got married, and GFW has kind of blown up, and you've been able to kind of be a part of that and ride the wave. Of those things that have taken place. Maybe you can share a little bit about the book, a little about marriage, and yourself as far as the championship and Global Force is concerned.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely been a different sort of year. Like we were just reflecting on this before this call, actually. That while professionally things were very transitional in 2015, going into 2016. That personally they were rewarding. And although the book is certainly a professional endeavor, or at least I hope so. It felt more personal to me than wrestling. Because wrestling has been my sort of career and my sole occupation, and really sort of consumed my life for the best part of a decade. And to do the book was something that I had always envisioned, and always hoped I could do. And then one day, just through a couple of different opportunities that sort of landed near me, and was able to capitalize on, I was suddenly able to make that a reality. So I'm very proud of that. For those who don't know, it's called the Superstar Body, and the whole sort of mantra of the book is eat, train, live, which is basically, eat and you train and you live in a way that is fun and enjoyable and vibrant, and that can help you achieve the superstar body that you want. It's not about living like a monk or being a hardcore bodybuilder or being, a sort of pious kind of, boring sort of lifestyle, with regards to food and things like that. And it's also, about really going back to the sort of hedonistic kind of principles of like the 1970s, of the sort of era of like Arnold and what used to be called physical culture, which is just kind of take care of yourself and, enjoy life and do these things that make you feel better. And then when you feel better, you'll just be better at everything you do. And you'll look better, and you'll, the food will taste better. Your love life will improve and everything. And it's really more about looking and feeling like a superstar in whatever that may be for yourself. I want to give the readers the tools to build and sculpt whatever kind of body they vision for themselves when they think about what their perfect body would be for them.
Now, you've also had you've gotten married, and how has that experience itself changed you? Have you seen things a little bit differently? Is it just everything that when it comes to wrestling professionally, things are still kind of in tow with it, or?
What do you mean by in tow with it?
Well, no, when it comes to, because being a part of the business and having somebody that's married, that you're married to, and you're.
Oh, I see. Right.
You know what I mean? So does everything still, is it still business as usual? It was just kind of a break, but then the experience itself.
Yeah, I think that, I don't, it's one of those classic things that people ask you when you get married. It's like, oh, how does it feel? Does it feel different? And, we lived together, and we were, we have a son together. We were as good as married anyway. So, it's really more of a case of making it official. But certainly we had a great wedding. We did it on New Year's Eve. And, a lot of our friends were there, family, and it was a cool, it wasn't an overly huge affair, but it was a very cool, like very classy kind of black tie kind of feel, and we had a lot of fun. And it's still weird, like being introduced. But like yesterday, we were in Nashville. We ended, and just one of our friends is a director and producer. And he happened to be in town as well. And but suddenly next thing you know, like we were in a video for a guy called Big Schmo, who's like a country rapper and stuff. And it's just funny how like then she we're mingling and meeting different people, and Mickey's sort of introducing me as, oh, this is my husband. Like that's still weird. It's still strange to me. It's still new. But I think in terms of the business, we've sort of coexisted quite harmoniously for the from in the business. Like at first it was different because, when we first got together, she was, well, and still is, more of an established star than I am, but within TNA, I certainly hadn't reached, the sort of, hadn't reached the sort of level of kind of tenure with the audience that I had by the time I left there. So it was more, in those early days, it was more important to me that we kept things more low key because I needed to establish myself on my own and not be, not run that risk of being kind of just heavily associated with my wife, who was, much more established in the business at that time. But at this point, we have our own things, and then we have things that we do together, and most of it falls within the realm of sports entertainment. Some of it's sort of on the fringe of it, and some of it's in completely other areas. So we're both pretty entrepreneurial in that regard, and I think more so than ever, we're looking at a lot more things outside of wrestling in terms of our future, as entrepreneurs, trying to establish a business, and some of that again, will overlapping into wrestling, and then some of it will be, completely outside of it. So it's an exciting time.
Now, when you've talked about the crossover from wrestling, and you have mentioned entrepreneurial opportunities, I guess the book was one, but are there other ones that either have happened or that you look forward to taking place, or kind of, without trying to divulge too much, that fans or wrestling fans can look forward to when it comes to Nick Aldis?
Well,
without trying to tip your hat too much.
You're right. You're right, and it's one of those classic things in wrestling and in entertainment, but I think in wrestling it's even more prevalent. Is you get these people that say, like, I've got all these big things coming on the horizon, and most of the time it's overblown, and or it's just an idea or whatever. But we've been working on some different things on the sort of promotion side of things. Like we do have a big hand in the Global Force UK shows, from the sort of promoting and producing standpoint. And then we just decided to work with Jake the Snake Roberts for his. He has a show called The Unspoken Word, where he's now going and doing telling stories, and doing sort of stand-up comedy / storytelling and Q&A type stuff, along the lines of what like Mick has done and other guys. And we're promoting an Unspoken Word event with Jake in Richmond next month. That's going to be on March 11th. At the beach house in Richmond, so we're starting to delve into things from the business side of things. I can't divulge too much, but there's going to be some things coming up with Mickey, where Mickey sort of, from more of like a broadcasting standpoint, but that's about as much as I can say at this point. And then for me, we are looking at and sort of trying to plan and figure out some stuff in the fitness realm as well. I've been having some calls and meetings with different people as far as setting up, things like apps and training systems and things like that. So, we're very much in the sort of embryonic kind of phase of a lot of the projects that we're sort of looking into. But, whilst all the while, I'll maintain that we're both very much active in the business still. It's not like we're doing this because we're sort of getting out of the business. But I'm just at a point now where I'm starting to get excited about doing other things. Whereas for a long time I was just all about being a wrestler and nothing else.
But I mean, the diversity that you're creating for yourself is also setting yourself up for the future too, right?
Absolutely, and that's I think since I had since my son was born, there's been much more of a part of my thought process, because I don't have a college degree. Should I get one? Yes. But it would cost me a lot of money and time. And that was a conscious decision I made back at 18, until I got straight into the business, and I was working full time by the time I was 19. And now I'm 29, and look back and go, well, there's part of me that goes, I could have had a college degree, but if I had a college degree, I would have been coming out of college at 21. I wouldn't have got signed to the Gladiators, and then that wouldn't have opened the door for, so there's a lot of things, I don't don't live in regret. I don't look back. But at the same time, it makes me very conscious of the fact that, I'm completely responsible for, for my son's future and what we do next. And I think, I think we're all at this point in time in the business, having just witnessed, one of the most tender moments in the history of the business, in Daniel Bryan's, retirement. That it can be taken away from you, and that's that there is no guarantee, and there is no timeline. And for a guy like him, in his mid-30s, he had a lot more to offer the business, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to. And it is if it doesn't serve as a reminder to you in the business at this point, then you really need to reevaluate your thought process, because this business can be cruel.
Well, it's interesting that you've mentioned the Bryan retirement that happened this past week. So, with that said, have you had any interactions or any experiences, not necessarily with Bryan himself, and if you have, that's great, but where you've seen somebody else's career, you've worked closely enough with somebody where their career was cut short because of injury, and yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, my interactions with Bryan, only very, very limited back in the day when I was my very first year in the business, breaking in with All-Star Wrestling to Brian Dixon. Bryan at that point was American Dragon. He would come over quite frequently to England at that point, and we had a little run where we were, where they put us together as a tag team for a while, and he just, completely carried me through, about 24 matches with guys like Rene Dupree and Carl Ouellette and various different regulars on the All-Star circuit. But he was a wonderful guy then. He was a great worker, and taught me a lot just from being around him. I've not really had much interaction with him since then, but always admired from afar. The other guy, you asked about witnessing, someone's career get cut short. I was, Nigel McGuinness and I were a tag team when his career ended. We were just about to get started with that, and there was a lot of people excited about that team. It's funny to me. I've always said you can tell that had potential because we literally did about 3 weeks of TV, and so for all intents and purposes, no one should have remembered that. And yet, for a good 2 years after that, people still would ask me about London Brawling and be like, "Oh man, I loved you and Nigel the team. You guys were awesome." And I was thinking, how would you know that? We had like 3 matches. We had that really great in-ring promo segment with the Machine Guns that was, going to set up for us to work with them, and I think everyone was excited about it. And then after that, Nigel, that was it. It was, and obviously if you've seen Nigel's documentary, you know what the details of that are and everything. But heartbreaking, man, absolutely heartbreaking. And it was just like that. And the worst part of it is that you have to not only live with that sort of sadness to your friend, or someone that you admire and look up to, like I did with Nigel, but also you have to sort of deal with the guilt of knowing that, well, next week I'm going to show up and just get back to work, and it's like the business just moves. It just keeps moving and doesn't stop for anybody.
So as we talk about the movement of wrestling and the progression of Nick Aldis, with Global Force Wrestling itself becoming heavyweight champion, whereabouts, if you could share with us, would the decision to have you become champion, and I guess be the flag bearer, to pardon a cliche, with Global Force, where was that decision maybe had come along?
I mean, you're asking the wrong guy. Okay. my only involvement, with Global Force, outside of, being a guy who they book and I show up and wrestle is, like I said, I have a hand in the UK shows because obviously I have, ties to the UK and ties to the business of there, and obviously my British citizenship, lends itself well to, to certain business obstacles that wouldn't be as easy for an American to do. So, but as far as, being the champion of that promotion or anything like that. It's, you know, that was a decision that I'm assuming was from Jeff Jarrett. You know, I know that he and Scott D'Amore work extensively on all that stuff, and Kevin Sullivan and Andre, you know, is more heavily involved. And yeah, I was grateful, and certainly it's, you know, it's a nice responsibility, and it's a nice thing to say that a promotion like that, you know, wherever it ends up heading in the future, you know, that whatever it may be, that I was the first heavyweight champion for that promotion. You know, that's you know, I guess it's a cool thing to have. Like, I'm not a big mark for the titles. You know, it's not, and I don't mean that to sort of downplay it, but for me, I'm just about telling a great story and entertaining people and being a great character and meaning something on the show, and being presented in the right way and having fun and making other people have fun when I'm out there. I'm not too concerned about, you know, championship titles, although I'm very grateful for all of the ones that I've held, you know, all over the world.
I remember you once shared with us that your program with Samoa Joe was one that you were quite pleased with, and having the opportunity to work with them. In Global Force, are there potential fees that you can foresee yourself having that you think there's magic to be made there, there's money to be made there, there's opportunities to be made, and there's great storytelling to be made there that you can...
Well, look, here's the thing, is that would be an easier question to answer if Global Force was more advanced as a company. You know, it's a credit to Jeff and to the promotion that they've been able to sort of establish that, you know, a brand quite quickly. But ultimately, you know, they're big. You know, we're not dealing with a regular product yet. You know, it's not a product that's running weekly. It's not on television yet. We did film a season, you know, 10 episodes of television that are, as far as I'm aware, like fully edited and ready to go and everything. But, you know, it's certainly, you know, I mean this in the nicest possible way, but it's, you know, I'm treating it really no differently to, you know, any other booking that I take, because I'm completely a free agent at this point. I'm not under contract there or anywhere else. So, having said that, I enjoyed working with Chris Wardetsky. You know, most people know better as Chris Masters. Like he was the guy who, to me, was probably got on TV in WWE way too soon. And I don't mean that to, you know, as a knock to him or to them, but I mean, like, he's so much better now than he was when he was there. And such a good, you know, his work in the ring is really excellent, and he's a good talker, and he's got this sort of unusual kind of swagger about him, and he's like a cartoon character. And I like working with guys like that. I like, you know, I'm a little bit sour on this sort of played out, like, I'm angry at the world, like, you know, I'm against the grain sort of character. I feel like that whole gimmick's been like totally overplayed out. I like guys who embrace the idea of being like a larger than life, you know, cartoon character. Like, I don't need all my wrestlers to be like, I'm just a regular guy, I'm just like you. Like, I don't want that in all my wrestling characters. Like, I like characters who are larger than life. I think that's why Brock Lesnar, is such a phenom of business by himself. I think that's why The Undertaker has drawn more money than anybody, and, you know, arguably, you know, consistently throughout the years. I think that, you know, if you look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, even though the appeal of Stone Cold was certainly to the everyman, like, he was not at all like a regular guy. You know, he didn't present himself like one. He didn't look like one. I don't know how many, you know, 6'2", 250-pound, like, muscled up, you know, bald-headed, like, guys are walking around, you know, the average insurance office, you know, talking trash like that. So, you know, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm of the opinion, and if you look at pop culture, I think that I'm right. With all the sort of comic book stuff that's so popular now, and all of the things that are doing really well on TV, I think that we as a business and as a genre are ready to move back to larger than life characters and you know, really present ourselves big stars rather than kind of everyman, like, fringe performers who are sort of catering to the internet.
So now, how would you suggest the characters be portrayed, where that they're larger than life, however, not so over the top that they become unrealistic? Is there any ones that?
Well, I think that comes down to the performer. Certainly, obviously now we live in a very different world to the world that perhaps the Undertaker first, came along in the sense that, wrestling overall, the wrestling product on television is much more micromanaged than it used to be. So certainly some of that responsibility has been taken away from the performer, which, I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'll leave that to everybody else to sort of hash that out. Oh, sorry, my son is starting to chime in on the conversation. I think that so certainly I think the responsibility now is split between the performer and the producers, in the sense of what does this, what do we want this character to be, and how does it resonate? And to your point, yes, it's to not be over the top and cheesy where people can't present their disbelief. But also at the same time, I think that we're better than constantly sort of just placating to the trend on social media or the sort of vocal minority of sort of disgruntled fans who latch onto a certain type of character and kind of hijack the shows for everybody else. I've got quite strong opinions on that, and that may have served me well or may not, depending on who you talk to. But it's like I think that it comes down to people in the business need, like performers, I think it starts with. It always begins and ends with talent, in my opinion. And it takes a talent to just decide, and maybe it's me, maybe it's someone else, because I'm just as guilty as everyone else. Like, I got into a comfort zone. But it takes someone to go to push the boat out with a new sort of character and own it and take, and really sort of take it and squeeze every single bit out of it they can and see where it takes them and present it in such a way. And I think that you're going to see more of that with Lucha Underground. I think that's one of the reasons why they're doing so great and why they're going to just, I feel like they're just getting started, like they're just scratching the surface of their success. But certainly if you look at the way they're presenting characters, we're going much more back to, hey, this isn't your everyday guy who's, walking down the street or, this isn't the guy who's going to get upset that, about something that was said on Twitter. This guy's a superstar. This guy's a larger-than-life superhero.
During your time in TNA, how much wiggle room would you say you had as far as creative freedom with the characters that you portrayed?
Well, it really all depended on the situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot, it all, and you have to remember that during my career in TNA, I worked for, I'm trying to think here, so I worked for 4 different bosses,
Wow, that's
like if you don't discount the fact that Dixie obviously is, technically the final say, and it, but voluntarily kind of shift the final say to, or at one point it was Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff, Bruce Pritchard, and now John Barrett. So it's like 4 completely different people with completely different philosophies on wrestling and completely different views of me as a character and, just as importantly, me as a human being. So it's, so sometimes there were times where I was able to, it's the same as anything. You have to just be mature and be an adult, and, I was very young and like probably too headstrong during some of my time there. But there are times where you have to just accept, like, okay, this is the way they want this thing done. You're not going to win this battle. You know what I mean? You have to, you pick your hill to die on sometimes. And so there were some times where I would go, I have this idea, and this is like, I have this vision of like, it could go like this, and they would go, yes, I agree with that. Like, let's build on that. And then there were some times where they would go, no, we want you to do it like this, and you just have to sort of you have to eat it, and sometimes most of the time you reach somewhere in the middle. So, or I think you do if you're that kind of. I mean, certainly there are some guys who will just pretty much do whatever they're told, and then there are some guys who will fight every single little thing. And I probably ran the gambit of, when I was first there, I went from being one of those guys who did whatever whatever was given to me. I mean, you can see that from when I came out in that gladiator helmet to leading up to, where there was probably times towards the end of my run there that I probably tinkered with stuff too much, and sometimes there were times I should have just, gone out and made the best of it because I was good enough performer to do that. So it really depends on the situation and the person.
Well, to that, I guess you lend that to more experience and faith in yourself as to how you can convey the character, and being seasoned as you were, as opposed to being earlier in your career. It's twofold, right? It's very different, and not everybody's going to handle it that same way, right?
Yeah, of course. And also you have to remember that you have to remember as well that during that time I was also improving as an actual in-ring performer. I pretty much grew up on television in the business. I sort of came in very, very green and was fortunate enough and made the conscious decision to stay with the TNA in the early days because I was going to be able to work. I looked around and said, I've got AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Doug Williams, Christopher Daniels, Jay Lethal, the Machine Gun, all of these great talents who are all here right now, and and Bobby Roode, and James Storm, and what I mean, and then obviously the senior guys at the time like Kurt Angle, Booker T, Kevin Nash, Scott Steiner, Sting, who obviously did a hell of a lot for me later on in my career. But I made that conscious decision of this is the perfect place for me to be nurtured as a performer because I knew I wasn't there yet. So we were talking about developing a character or trying to sort of find your niche or find your footing as a character, but at the same time I was also trying to get comfortable enough in the ring where I knew I could deliver any kind of story, because you have to be good enough in the ring to be able to tell the stories that they want you to tell, and until you can do that, it's really pointless. I've seen many, many characters come along in both companies, in TNA and in WWE, and in other companies, where the concept was fantastic. I thought that gimmick is going to be great, but if the performer wasn't quite there yet, wasn't quite polished enough yet, wasn't quite mature enough as a wrestler, you can't get it done. I mean, again, I don't keep sort of harping on about Undertaker, but, by the time he got to the show, you know what I mean, and with The Undertaker, he had enough experience in other places with less successful characters and understanding the process that goes into it a little more to understand, I know how to, I can take this character and I'm your guy to be The Undertaker, I'll make this work, and this is how, and they did it together, and look how successful it was. If he'd have been too green when he was first given that, it would have been just another character that was, that was forgotten about. But because he was good enough at the time, timing is so, so important.
You talked about the connections that you'd still had in England and how your time in the UK has become part of your time with Global Force and being able to maintain those relationships. With that said, the growing number of talent that is coming out of the UK from an independent perspective, it's enormous. Whether it's your Zack Sabre Juniors or your Will Ospreays or Tommy End, of the talent that you've come across or seen, is there anyone that you would think could transition to North America and the styles here better in your interactions or from what you've seen as far as their development?
Well, let me go ahead and correct you first. Tommy End is Dutch, and he would be very disappointed to have you categorize him as a Brit. So,
I apologize. And
yeah, no, he's Dutch, and I know that it frustrates him because a lot of people think he's German as well because he wrestles a lot in Germany, but no, he's actually Dutch. But he's awesome, absolutely. I think the name no, of course, I'm making you know because if you talk to him, I don't want you to make that mistake. If you when you went through that list, and obviously Zach has had a great year, and Will Ospreay, a brilliant, he's a sort of prodigy when it comes to talent. I think he's got a little bit of a way to go as far as finding himself as a character and as a performer. But to me, the name you left off that list is Marty Scurll. Like, and I know that that may seem biased because he's one of my best friends, but I don't think I need to. I don't need to justify it now because he's done enough. His body of work now is speaking for itself. And I think, to me, when you take, and again, not trying to sound overly biased about it, but when you take, he's got he's got technical skill to rival Zach, and he's got, and sort of flying stuff to match like a Will Ospreay, but he also has so much incredible talent as a character and as a talker, and now he's really found himself with the villain persona. It's magic, and he offered, it's switched, and I'm not ashamed to say that at this point in our careers, he for many years he would be calling me for advice, and now there are times where I'm saying to him, like, what do you think I should be doing with this? What do you think I should do here? Because he's found himself and he's on a roll, and that momentum is going to take him somewhere really good.
So, of the names mentioned, I also had the opportunity to talk to Mark Andrews, who spoke really highly of Marty Scurll as well. I guess with the TNA British boot camp, and it was something that maybe you'd seen from a distance. Where can you say that these? I'm sorry, I'm losing sight of my question right now. From the talent that has crossed over and is here right now, can you see making a even further of an impact during their time? I guess in North America, whether it's in an ROH or in Lucha Underground or even in TNA.
Well, I don't know. Sparta's had a pretty successful run, and I think that Drew Galloway's done a great job of reinventing himself, and he's another guy who sort of inspired me in a lot of ways because he came away from obviously a pretty sort of low period by the time he left WWE. He was pretty, he was obviously frustrated, but he took that and did the absolute right thing with it and used it to fuel him to bring out, better performances than he'd arguably ever done at WWE. And he's now having a great sort of story to tell with Evolve and with PWG and TNA and this and that, and he's a Brit who, he's the guy that people should be looking up to. And then you can't forget about the guys who are all killing it in WWE as well, because frankly, like that's I have to look up to them because they're part of the reason why I'm not there, because it's like they're doing such a great job, and there's been many success stories, but I think Wade Barrett at a point now where he's been on a very successful character on television for a long time, a lot of years, and made good money. I'm assuming it's Sheamus, even though he's Irish, he really came from the British wrestling scene. Like, he came from the British wrestling scene, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't, like, there was a scene in Ireland, but he wrestled quite extensively in the UK, so we always, I think most of the boys there sort of look at him as one of our guys. And he's the most successful, he's the most successful of the era, no question. And then Neville is an anomaly. I'm proud to say that I recommended Neville to TNA. I recommended him to Terry Taylor back in 2010, I think. And at one point mentioned that Fergal Devitt was someone to be looking at as well. So I sort of take pride in the fact that they're both now considered two of the best in-ring performers in the whole business, and I agree with that statement, by the way.
Now, I know it is still very early in 2016, but what can fans maybe look forward to as it pertains to Nick Aldis? For the balance, I guess, of the next 3 quarters, what can we foresee from you in 2016, and how can fans interact and get in touch with you?
It's hard for me to say. I definitely think that I'm going to look to make, to make a big difference, in terms of my body of work, wherever that may be, whether it's Global Force or whether it's, anywhere else, because because there are a lot of great companies where you can do that, and I actively want to pursue the opportunity to, to better myself and to really kind of perhaps, not in order to reinvent myself, but I really want to have the opportunity to prove to everyone that, that I'm just sort of scratching the surface and, at 29, like just starting to reach my peaks as a performer. It's, obviously it started kind of in a frustrating fashion because I had surgery on December 1st. I injured myself in Mexico wrestling for AAA. I tore my bicep tendon, so I'm still recovering from that at this point. So, just been doing very limited kind of bookings, mostly sort of tag matches and or working with guys that I know I could trust. So that's frustrating. I have to get back to my, I have to get to my physical best again and, change things up a little bit with my, perhaps with my approach to training to improve my performance. And I've been working on some new things like some gymnastics and things like that. I'm looking into maybe going and doing some things like jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, just to bring in some new elements to my work in the ring. But that's all exciting. I'm looking forward to tackling that and hope that there are people out there interested in giving me the opportunity to showcase that. With that being said, easiest way to get hold of me for bookings or for anything else is, my Twitter is still at Magnus Official because I didn't want to lose my little blue check. So I left it. And, you can contact me through there, but also you can just get me, which is my very simple email address, which is nick@nickaldis.com, NICKALDIS, nick@nickaldis.com.
So on behalf of John Curry and myself, Mark Madison, we really want to thank you, Nick, for your time, and we appreciate you here with us on Main Event Madness.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks, guys. No problem.
Hey, John?
From the associate producer of The Wrestler, and in the tradition of Joe Franklin and Ed Sullivan variety talk shows, Evan Ginsberg's Legends TV features an eclectic mix of legendary million-selling musicians, indie artists deserving greater exposure, and colorful pro wrestlers. Co-hosted by Steve Ludwig of Classic Pop Culture Radio, the show airs live every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern at MadhouseTV.com and LegendsTVNYC.com. Martha Wash, Crown Heights Affair, Lanny Poffo, Nicole Bass, and other legends have joined us. You missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't you dare miss Evan Ginsberg's Legends TV. So you decided to check out Main Event Madness, and now you want to know how you can get the latest news about the show, the hosts, guests, showtimes, and more? Well, the answer's simple. Facebook. Head over to facebook.com/maineventmadness and be a part of the hundreds who have already liked the page and are the first to know everything you could ask about Main Event Madness. Facebook.com/maineventmadness, the official Facebook page for Main Event Madness Radio. Life's about working. Life's about progress. Why not put them together? Well, we did. Working Progress is here, the Fans View podcast. Matt Brees and Mike Rooker take the latest news and rumors in the world of pro wrestling and add in some NFL and more, and add a fantasy spin to it, and you get Working Progress every month, only on MEMnetwork.wix.com/home. From the ashes of our old website comes a fresh new face from Main Event Madness. MEM Network is here. Check out all of your favorite episodes of Main Event Madness, Working Progress, Wrestling's Rope Break, and Evan Ginsberg's Legends TV. More shows to be announced in the future, but check out MEMnetwork.wix.com/home, where the madness runs wild. Alright guys, we are back, Main Event Madness, February 17th edition, guys. If you guys are just tuning in, you missed one Helluva interview that you guys will be able to check out on demand on a number of different platforms, including iTunes, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Player FM, and YouTube, and coming soon we'll be on BreakingWrestlingNews.com. And also, guys, head over to PWPNation.com. They do a great job over there with columns, with news. Even our own Mark Madison works with them a little bit, I believe. So you guys definitely want to check that site out. That's PWPNation.com. It's formerly Pro Wrestling Powerhouse. They do a great job over there. Jay Leto and Aaron Rabadonov, who Aaron will be on with us, like I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, this Sunday on our pregame show. We'll talk about that later on this hour. But, yeah, first off, got to give the devil his dues. Great job, Mark, with that interview. Hope you guys all enjoyed hearing from Magnus.
A lot of fun to talk to. Very well-spoken guy.
Absolutely.
Has such a great mind, really, for the business, just because of what I've had the opportunity to talk to him before, and when you get a chance to really delve into what he's experienced, he's grown as a person too. He's definitely seen what sells and what doesn't, and he was able to do the numbers with me in the past. And, their numbers when he was with TNA were a lot higher because of the business that they were doing, and he understood. It made sense. If Sting was going to lay down for him to put him over, then why is he jobbing out further along the line? It devalued what he was doing with Sting during his time in TNA. So, the fact that GFW doesn't have a weekly episodic show yet, but still allows him the freedom to be a part of that program and then move around, it says a lot for him. And he's got his hands in a bunch of different fields. You got to appreciate that, both him and Mickey James. So.
Absolutely. He's a very forward-thinking guy, too.
Yeah.
He's definitely thinking a lot about the future and a lot about what's next for Magnus, what's next for Mickey James, as people and as professionals, wrestling as much as, you look at the grand scheme of things, wow, 15 years or however long they end up being in the business. I mean, Mickey's been in the business, God, I think like 12, 13 years now. It goes by like that. You gotta think about what comes after that. And thankfully for them, they're, like I said, they're very forward thinking, and they got a few ideas, and wish them nothing but the best. You guys can hit them up on Twitter at Magnus Official and at I just had her handle up here too. This is why we don't close out of web pages that we need.
Well, we're hoping that Mickey will hopefully hear us up. We can get her on the show.
At Mickey James. Okay, so that was easy enough.
Seems like a pleasant enough lady, and when she wasn't being used in the WWE at the time, she was still pursuing her post-secondary education, whether it's college or university degree, because it was just as important for her to set herself up afterwards.
Yes.
Gotta appreciate that.
Definitely. And a shout out I want to give to Karen Jarrett, wife of Global Force Wrestling owner Jeff Jarrett, for giving us a retweet promoting the interview. So thank you to her very much. But
Jarrett.
We got to dive right back into this, guys. We touched on it prior to our first commercial break before the interview. Wade Barrett put out a tweet. I don't know if it was the tweet first or if it was the post first, but nonetheless, Wade Barrett is leaving WWE in the summer, and Randy Orton. This is what Mark touched on. Randy Orton put out a tweet and said one thing the Viper doesn't like, and it said #coward, and then there's a video of Randy Orton versus Wade Barrett from 2010. So, some people are thinking maybe he's just talking about the match, maybe trying to build a feud, maybe. When he comes back, Barrett is a heel with the League of Nations, but most people are thinking it's either Randy bashing Barrett for not re-signing with the company, or that it was WWE using Randy Orton as a scapegoat and posting on his Twitter handle. Guys, and I'm gonna throw it to Hank first. Hank, how do you feel about this whole situation, and do you think it was WWE slighting Barrett? Kind of trying to kick him, while he's down, since he said he's not leaving, or he's not going to re-sign with the company, or do you think it was a legit thing from Randy Orton?
I think it's a combination of both. Let's be honest. Randy Orton is not the first time he put a foot in his mouth. He could be a bit of, people have said a lot of things about Randy behind the scenes, difficult to work with. He's said a lot of stupid things over the years. And he likes to draw attention to himself. WrestleMania's coming up. He's been out of the picture. Maybe gets his name being chatted about again, so I think he takes that tweet. Vince hates being shown up a bit. And that's what Barrett did, basically saying, I'm done. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of how I'm being misused. He didn't come right out and say it that way, but I think he's going to be the first, and we talked about this initially at the beginning of the show, of many who have just had it. How many times have we seen Cena and Orton over the years? And you just get tired of the same old stuff, and they've kind of gone on the back burner. And it's been great to see now an opportunity where they've both been behind the scenes for a while due to injuries or whatever. Not that you want to see anybody injured, but it's given people a chance to kind of step up. And I think guys are fearing that, well, when Orton comes back and when Cena comes back, I'm just going to get pushed further down in the card. They got Nakamura and all these guys. So I think it's, like I said, initially I think it's a combination of both Orton being a little bit of a jerk and the WWE taking a swipe at him for speaking his mind.
Can't fault that. I mean, he's at the same time that he is speaking his mind. They really need to have a better handle of, what is being put out there. There's going to be backlash, and either they knew that in giving their talent freedom to speak their mind, they run the risk that something's going to be said that's going to create an issue, right? And this was it. So it wouldn't be the first time. AJ Lee was vocal last year during the Give Divas a Chance hashtag that kind of spawned off of Stephanie McMahon making a statement, and she turned it into something where she's pointing out the pay of the females in comparison to the males on the roster. And, you give them freedom, and that's what happens, as they should have. But you can't fault somebody when you give them, is something supposed to be in character, or something supposed to be completely free? Which is it, and which do they want? And if they wanted something generic, then they shouldn't be giving their talent freedom to speak their mind. That said, they do. It's almost like, which one are you putting first? Do you want them to promote themselves and help to build character and utilize social media, or are you slapping their hands for speaking their mind? Because they're given the tools to utilize. So, just don't know.
It kind of piggybacks from what happened last week with Titus O'Neil. This freedom of, behaving in a certain way. When Vince puts himself and Stephanie and Triple H out there, and they keep reminding us that it's just a show and they play these characters, and the kayfabe is gone, and, we're all big one happy family, and he keeps putting himself out there, and now they get the back hit or the shoulder grabs from O'Neil as kind of like a playful rib. You crossed the line. Well, what is the line now? They've made these things so not clear anymore of what the line across is. You don't know how you don't know how to expect them to react anymore, and I guess the talent doesn't know how to react either anymore.
Well, and another question, a lot of people, at least I feel, should be asking, especially Vince McMahon, is, okay, so he is suspended, to set an example. The WWE, they're not going to tolerate this. McMahon's not going to tolerate this. Okay, but what is the precedent of this? What, there hasn't been any real scenarios or situations with talent in McMahon. I don't understand why Vince all of a sudden feels that he has to make an example out of somebody, and why Titus of all things, especially when he's laughing about it, unless, like we said last week, unless something else happened backstage that we don't know about. There's still the outside chance of that. But
I think the timing, though, John, of that would have been so you would have had all the moons align beautifully for that to be a substance abuse or or a PED kind of situation. It just so happens to happen on the same night he grabs him. I don't know.
Unless McMahon,
perfectly.
You
could have told him, grab me.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You failed a substance abuse or a wellness test, and we need to cover this up. We don't want you to have this stigma attached to you, that you're a performance enhancing drugs user. So grab me or do, try to hit me or something, you're going to be suspended, but, we're going to cover it up.
Wow. So they're gonna make that it's kind of like a bait and switch. You're made to think that it's one thing when it's actually something else.
You know what else wouldn't surprise me? And I mean to cut you off.
No.
Watch Titus return at WrestleMania.
Public outcry is almost demanding it to happen. He is.
Yeah.
Vince has put himself in such a bad spot. This is Black History Month. There's just so many bad timing. It's just horrible choice for him to do this. That if he brings him back for WrestleMania, that would be great. And I think the fans would love it.
It's a good thing you brought that up because I want to ask you guys something. Say, Titus, has much goodwill and as many good things as he's done for WWE and the good PR that he's brought towards the company. And, he's been on a little bit of a roll. So, if this happened to Titus, if it was to somebody like a, I don't want to slight anybody, but, say JTG was still in the company. Would it have had, if he comes back early because of the fan outcry, would they have cared if it was somebody like JTG who they didn't want to protect?
Yes and no.
I guess my bigger question is the overall question of it is, do you think Titus's positioning or future positioning had more to do with it, or do you think that had any effect on it versus if it was somebody lower on the card? I don't know. I had it in my head better than it ended up coming out, and I hope like nobody's offended or anything like that. I had a question and I couldn't.
No, I think that's fair because if it was somebody else that wasn't in the direction, because it looked like that Titus is more in a trajectory, unless Hank maybe sees a little different, because they split up him and Young, and they were moving more towards a singles push for Titus. This seemed like the best case scenario to try and go in that direction. What do you think, Hank?
I agree. I mean, you talk about a team that's really stirred the pot socially over the last year. That team of Titus O'Neil and Darren Young. Darren Young, coming out and being the first openly gay wrestler for the WWE, and that draws a lot of attention. Now this whole thing, I mean, even though they kind of split them up to give O'Neil the push, you talk about two guys who really caught the attention of the masses. That's why, again, I'm so surprised they would do this to him. Now maybe it is a work. I don't know, but I think personally, if he was the JTG of the world, and again, you're not slighting anybody, John. I think he's an excellent example because he's not with the company anymore. He's low on the rank of wrestlers. I don't know if it would happen. I think this is Vince's ego just blowing up again. That you don't show him up, and I think it's just another disconnect between him, the fan base, and his wrestlers. This is why for the TJR Wrestling.net, I did kind of my 5 things for 2016 I'd like to see. And one of the things I put was Vince just walking away. I mean, I know it'll never happen until the guy dies. He's going to have to kill. He's going to have to die in order to leave, I think. But I just wish he would go away because he's doing more harm than good half the time. Look at Raw. Look at the way he behaves. It's a disgrace.
And I mean, a lot of people were giving him a lot of credit because all the good he did for Roman Reigns before, but as time's gone on, it's kind of looking like it was more of a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. It helped for a little bit, but here we are. McMahon's good in small doses. Whether it's backstage, on screen, he's good in small doses. And the fact that we had him for like a month or so straight, and they got Reigns over, and then it backfired. And then McMahon does something like this, and it's like he goes in one direction, or what the best phrase I guess I could think of would be, he got an inch and he took a foot. as far as with the fans and everything. He just started building up some goodwill with the fans again. All right, McMahon's back. He's doing the right thing. He's doing some good stuff. Boom, Titus O'Neil. Well, this son of a bitch. and a part of you feel bad for him because he can't win. As much as he wins, he loses twice as much with the fans. And sooner or later they've got to. But they've got to let him step aside. But that'll be a conversation for another day. Mark.
Yes, my man.
What is on tap for you coming up this week? As we approach. Oh, go ahead.
As we approach Fastlane.
I was going to say as we approach Fastlane, and as we're approaching 9:30 here on the broadcast. I didn't want you to have to skip out and not be able to plug your stuff, man.
Oh, no problem. So what's happening? Well, actually, I put out something last week for TGRWrestling.net. It was exploring the Royal Rumble fallout, any potential scenarios, kind of things we talked about this week. This week, it's funny how we talked about Kevin Owens a little bit. It's going to be titled "Opening Doors with Kevin Owens." Really, how many opportunities seem to have come from Royal Rumble with Kevin Owens and what his significance means. You can look for that either on Friday or Saturday, depending on when Mr. Canton gets a chance to put it up on the site. So it'll be Opening Doors with Kevin Owens of the TGRWrestling.net feature. There's that, and as far as TGRWrestling.net, I have a few things. Didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Daniel Bryan. Hopefully my 10 things we'll miss about Daniel Bryan will show up there, along with a few other different options over the next few days. There's that. There's some things the WWE wants you to forget about Dean Ambrose, and we're also going to explore... I'm drawing a blank right now. There's a lot of writing and not a lot of talking right now. I'm thinking. But you can look forward to some of those things. I'll also get a chance to share those links up on our Facebook page on facebook.com/Main Event Madness. I'll get a chance to post those up there. Did you get a chance to see the wrestlers that share the love, John?
What's that?
Did you get a chance to read up on the wrestlers that like to bring the love?
I did not. Was that the one we were talking about last week?
Yeah, and how you had Mark Henry's music playing in the background?
Yes, and the world's largest love machine, Viscera.
Yeah, well, that one's up there as well. So if fans wanted to get back into that romantic mood, even though Valentine's a few days removed, maybe you can treat that special someone to pictures of Viscera in a giant, oversized Hugh Hefner house robe, or
the world's largest pair of silk pajamas.
Yeah, that's frightening. It's like a small tent.
Which hats off to him for wrestling in silk pajamas, by the way, for the record.
And he can pull it off.
He did. But, speaking of pulling things off, we pulled off a major coup this week. Because, as we do at 9:30 each and every week, we brought on a man who is a very well-spoken man, a well-informed man, a knowledgeable man, a man who is a radio veteran. You guys can see him each and every week, MadhouseTV.com, for a new weekly edition of Legends TV, one of the most eclectic TV shows you will ever see. The only place you can see a politician, possibly a porn star, and a wrestler. And a man who does a very great job with that, and a great job with the radio, and he does a tremendous job each and every week on this show with his edition, Ginsberg's Gab. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Evan Ginsberg joining the show.
Great to be on, guys. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
And a goodbye to you, Mr. Mark Madison. I'm sure we will talk very soon.
We will.
It's like I tag in like every week.
You're coming in the hot tag, coming in to finish the matchup.
You're here to save the day, Evan.
Okay. The hot tag. Here we go.
Yep, that's it.
That's right.
Take it easy, Mark.
Take care, Mark.
So, I'm a little disappointed. I thought that was one of the best intros I ever give you, Evan, and you didn't even give me any props for it.
I'm always honored, and I appreciate it. And
so Hank,
he was.
what he's saying is I've gotten used to getting such tremendous intros that I feel I don't need to acknowledge. No, I was joking. But we have our second participant in our co-host auditions. This is Hank McAllen. He's another writer for TGIWrestling.net. And Hank, this is the one, the only, will never came before him, will never happen again, Evan Ginsberg. Once in a lifetime individual.
Often imitated, never duplicated, Evan Ginsberg, right?
Exactly.
There you go, Hank. Hank. All right. So everybody looking forward to Sunday's pay-per-view? That didn't sound like looking forward to.
I'm looking forward to doing a podcast on Sunday.
This is like role reversal. I'm usually the guy who goes, I could care less.
It's another instance of WWE with a very top-heavy card.
Well, I think that main event is going to kill. I think it'll be worth seeing just for that main event. I mean, the fanboys, a lot of them hate Roman Reigns, but the guy who always comes through with an excellent match, and Brock Lesnar is tremendous, and Dean Ambrose is unique. And I think the three of them together should be, at least on paper, if it's not overbooked with, any ridiculous finish or whatever, I think if they just let these three go at each other for 20 minutes, it's going to be killer. I think it'll be great.
I'd like to say, I'm hoping we don't see the Wyatt family show up to interfere or a ref bump or something. Just let them go. Just let the three of them go. And if we have a heel turn with Reigns or we have another heel turn with Ambrose, then so be it. But just let these three guys go with it. No outside interference. I can't stand that. Or ref bumps. Just don't clutter things. Make it. Just let them go. Just let them wrestle.
You're like a younger version of me. That's word for word.
He's even got the accent.
Word what I say all the time. Yeah. Look, I turned on TNA yesterday for like 7 minutes.
God, he was delirious.
7 minutes, and they just hit you with all these ridiculous angles and promos, and I'm just like, life is too short, and I turned it off. It's like, just let them wrestle. You have this incredible talent base, whether it's TNA, whether it's WWE. The beauty of ROH is, you watch an hour of their TV, and most of it is wrestling. And, this is the irony of WWE pay-per-views. They're so hit and miss that Fastlane could be better than WrestleMania.
Not wrong.
The show following WrestleMania could be better than WrestleMania. You never know. You usually get your 3 or 4 quality matches, and the rest are, stinkers or forgettable or overbooked or whatever. So, I'll tell you, a couple months ago they had Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker on one of these monthly pay-per-views, and it was tremendous, absolutely tremendous. So you never know what to expect.
Yeah, WrestleMania is really eating a shit sandwich. They got Fastlane, which could be better both on paper and in match quality than WrestleMania, and NXT Dallas 2 days before that. Odds are is going to be much better than what they're going to put together for WrestleMania.
You'll have Nakamura making his debut, and I'm hoping Nakamura's presence in the company will help them see how to tell a story. Because if you watch New Japan, if you watched Wrestle Kingdom 9 from last year, Wrestle Kingdom 10, if you get to see them at all on the local show, their 1 hour program here in the States, they're old school. They tell a story. You don't understand the word these guys are saying, but they tell a story in the ring, and they keep the match real, and they make you make that emotional investment into them that you really can't do in the WWE. I mean, you got guys flipping face heel, and it's a whole big,
Do you know the Big Show has turned 35 times? That's no exaggeration. So how is anybody supposed to take that seriously?
Yes. You're going to get the gentle giant or the mean giant. You don't know.
Or the crying giant. I like the crying giant myself.
Let me ask you guys a question, because I've thought about this for years. Do you think it behooves would it behoove WWE to not have a pay-per-view? I mean, I know it all comes down to money, and you need the money, and I get it, but would it be better if they didn't have a pay-per-view between the Rumble and Mania to give them more time to build over 8 weeks a beautiful storyline, a lot of heat to build up, going old school with building great feuds leading into Mania? To me, it just cluttered things. Whether it was the old pay-per-view, what did they have? What was it? Hell in a Cell or whatever? Not Hell in a Cell.
No Way Out.
Elimination Chamber, No Way Out, whatever. These in-between pay-per-views just seem to clutter things and confuse things.
Yeah, well, personally, a couple of months back, they showed a Madison Square Garden card live on the WWE Network, and I was perfectly happy to watch that. They're charging $25 to like $130 a ticket as it is, so if you can watch it in the comfort of your house, instead of a pay-per-view, and then build, like you said, have 2 months to build the pay-per-view properly, where it's not just a rush job where people just aren't thrown together haphazardly. Whenever you see like 6 guys thrown together for like no reason, it's like a rush job.
Well, and even to go along with that, the way the ratings have been down for WWE, if you go 8, 10, 12 weeks, whatever it is between the Rumble and Mania, some years it varies. Oh my God, then you can build Raw. And oh my God, then you can, instead of a pay-per-view, you can build up a big Raw or a big SmackDown. That's inconceivable.
See, Hank is absolutely right. I have New Japan World, which is a bargain at $8 and change a month. They have 40 years of content and all their shows live on there. And you watch their shows, and the fans are so emotionally involved. Emotionally, where they deeply, deeply care. That Daniel Bryan goodbye was so emotional, and it was comparable to Nakamura leaving New Japan, which was televised, and it was very, very emotional. The fans are totally invested. Whereas on a WWE pay-per-view, you're basically just rooting for a good match. You don't really care if this one wins or loses, except maybe when the Undertaker's streak was finally broken. There's no real emotional investment. I mean, be honest. You have Lesnar, Reigns, and Ambrose. I like all 3 of them. I mean, would I care one way or the other who wins or loses? I wouldn't lose 1 minute's sleep over any of it. I'm just rooting for a good match. Whereas New Japan, you deeply are involved in the storylines, and the results mean something. The WWE, when you go, Randy Orton was 12-time champion and John Cena was 15-time champion, whatever, it means nothing after a while. So what do the titles actually mean?
I wrote an article on that very topic on TGRWrestling.net about the length of reigns versus number of reigns. And I'm a length of reign guy. I grew up with Bruno Sammartino and Bob Backlund and Pedro Morales, and you held the title.
Really? How old are you?
I'm 51.
Really? Wow. Yeah, because I'm 50. I'm 56. You have a voice like a kid. I assumed you were younger. Wow.
No, I wish I was, but it does go back to the meaning something. And you were mentioning, John. I don't know if you had a chance. Did you get a chance to see Nakamura's goodbye in New Japan?
I did not.
It was great.
I highly recommend you see it, because at the end, Okada, who is maybe the greatest wrestler in the world, probably. He's the heir apparent. He's in his late 20s. He puts Nakamura on his shoulders and carries him around the ring. And when Okada did that, the sign of respect and reverence from the fan base still went, ooh, when he put him on his shoulders. You couldn't help but emotionally get involved in this. And you do not see this at all in the States. ROH is doing a decent job, because they're helping, to get to work with New Japan. But,
Hank,
oh my God.
I think Nakamura is the best wrestler in the world, because he's the total package. He's got more charisma than Okada. Okada is a machine. Okada is a technician. Okada is great. But I'm more entertained by Nakamura with all the quirky mannerisms. I just enjoy. He's my
favorite wrestler right now, Evan. He's my favorite wrestler. He's the most charismatic guy I've seen in years.
Nakamura is my favorite wrestler who is active. Absolutely. Nobody touches this guy.
And he can speak English.
Yeah, and Okada's right up there. AJ Styles is right up there. I mean, these guys are just tremendous, and it elevates it to an art form. And the one storyline besides the Undertaker streak that worked in the States was when Daniel Bryan finally won that championship after being beaten down. And, you know, it's very rare these days that people have an emotional involvement. When Bruno Sammartino lost the belt, Hank will tell you, the arena went dead silent. People were stunned. People were hurt. People cared. You know, it's like I couldn't name one Randy Orton title defense or title loss. I couldn't tell you one match because nothing registered. There's no emotional involvement.
Benoit. I think that if anyone stands out by itself, I think it's Benoit because nobody saw Randy Orton beating Benoit, you know, who was on a roll as the World Heavyweight Champion at the time, and Randy Orton was a fresh-faced 24-year-old, and, you know, the fact, I don't know, that one stands out a little bit to me, partially because...
winning the belt was a big deal.
Huh?
Yeah. Eddie Guerrero winning the belt was a big deal.
Eddie Guerrero winning the belt, you know... I think if I'm thinking, you know, maybe not even Randy Orton, but title defenses or title changes that, you know, that stick out to me, Eddie and Benoit after WrestleMania 20.
Absolutely, I agree. Eddie's was extremely emotional. You could see it. Benoit as well too. But again, it's few and far between those moments here in the States. I went to the Ring of Honor show in Brooklyn with when they had New Japan.
I was there.
And when Okada and Nakamura each came out, the place erupted. I mean, they just went nuts. And I'm so glad that Jay Lethal decided to stay in Ring of Honor.
And let me just say, since you mentioned that show, how reprehensible it was that WWE ran against them the very same night, the very same town, when they've used ROH as a feeder system, basically, for some of their top talent. How ruthless, how disgraceful.
I'm so glad you said that, Evan. I was so bothered by that, and plus to get Liger on the card when other New Japan guys are over on
they're ruthless. They want it all. It's like a pig wanting it all, you know.
Vince does this all the time. If you look, when TNA was at its peak, when it was hot, and they had Petey Williams and Styles and Daniels back in 2004, 2005, 2006, Vince always reacts to this. And what does he do? Well, let me bring ECW back. So he brings ECW back. Now ROH is getting hot. What does he do? Well, let me make NXT a rival of ROH. It's like he gobbles up the talent. It's like at the baseball trade deadline when people take guys just to block other people from having them. It's like Vince does this where he overpays and gobbles all the talent up, a la what he did in the 80s, and he doesn't know what to do with it half the time. And then these guys get disgruntled like Barrett announced this week, and then they leave, and they lose prime years of their career just to be on Vince's roster and underutilized.
Speaking of losing years, there are guys in NXT that have been there for years that may never get called up and probably won't. And, you know, these guys are getting paid $25,000, $50,000. There's New York City school teachers making more money than that. And, you know, the idea that these are quote-unquote superstars because they happen to be on TV, it's a very exploitative business. And I don't think McMahon is doing a lot of these guys any real favors. Like, you know, basically NXT is treated as like a AAA farm team, and the guys who don't get called up to the main roster, they're kind of putting their lives on hold. They're in limbo. And, you know, I know people get offended when you're critical of WWE because they treat it like a religion, but, you know, it's a ruthless corporation at heart. So I think some of the criticisms are justified.
Do you both think that, you know, guys like Wade Barrett, guys like Dolph Ziggler, you know, that are mid-card guys that have just been floundering around, do you think that they would either A, be happier, or B, have more success if WWE kept around the brand split and they had a Raw or they had a SmackDown that they could go through that was a separate entity from Raw and from NXT? Do you think it would have helped at all?
No. I think both of those guys have real limitations. Barrett is not particularly charismatic, and Ziggler, he's like Shawn Michaels light. I mean, he's very good, but he's not great. I saw him headline the Garden, the one cut I've been to in 14 years, against Cena in a cage match, no less, headlining a packed Madison Square Garden. I'm watching this, and I'm going, okay, Ziggler's the heel, seems like a nice guy, seems likable, like to have a beer with that guy. There was like no heel heat whatsoever. It's just every move in the book. I mean, technically the guy's excellent, but there's just something missing. He's not Pat Patterson. He's not Ray Stevens. He's a top-notch, wrestler. But there's guys like Nakamura and AJ and Cena. There's just guys who have like over-the-top talent, charisma, whatever the case may be. And I don't see Barrett and Ziggler on that level, to be honest.
Kevin Owens is the best pure heel they've gotten in this company in a long time.
Owens is tremendous. Absolutely tremendous.
I'm watching him Monday night, and he's just drawing the heat. He's talking to the crowd. This guy is wrestling 101. If you listen to Jim Ross, if you listen to the old-timers, he does everything they tell you to do. Talk to that crowd. Generate the heat. Insult them if you have to. Go old school. I mean, you remember the old ladies sitting at the Garden waving their pocketbooks at the bad guys, Spiro Farion, and these other guys, they're losing their minds. Look at Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper. I mean, the angst that he would draw from people. You want to reach for your TV and punch the guy.
Roddy Piper, Madison Square Garden, mid-'80s, headlining. The only way to describe that experience, it was like a tornado hit the place. It was such pandemonium where you're watching this guy and you're saying to yourself, he doesn't know 1 second to the next what he's going to do. It's just like this insane energy level. And some of his matches were only 8, 10, 12 minutes, but you would just be drained at the end of a Roddy Piper heel match headlining the Garden. Whether it was with Bob Orton Jr. as a tag match, inevitably against Snuka and whoever, but or a singles match. So you can't compare a Wade Barrett or a Dolph Ziggler with a prime heel Roddy Piper, or Randy Savage. It's just, it's not on the same level.
Do you think that? I mean, I love Stone Cold. Don't get me wrong, I love him, and the latest article I did yesterday on the TJR Wrestling.net website was I did my Mount Rushmore of who the faces of WWE have been, the greatest faces of the company, not faces and good guys, but who've been those guys that have represented the company as the faces, and Austin is one of them. But do you think Austin has done more harm than good in the long run, in that when he crossed that line of making the bad guy cool, that these guys now think I have to be a cool heel as opposed to a bad guy heel, and it only, like we said, Owens seems to be the only one who's getting it. Do you think that inevitably did more harm than good when the bad guy became cool?
Well, that's a complicated question. Owens is perfect in that whoever he's up against, it feels like a legitimate feud. You want to see it. You want to see the payoff. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? What's going to happen? Who's going to get that belt? You care. You deeply care. With Stone Cold, I don't think the belt meant that much. I think it was more the spiel, the beer, the gimmick. I don't even know if I just answered your question, but I don't know. What do you think, John?
Well, I'm going to kind of twist Hank's question around and flip it back to you, Hank. The way of, the type of heel that Kevin Owens is such of a pure, and it's like he's almost, and I hate to use this word, but it's kind of the only one to really use, he's almost an invincible heel, where no matter how much he loses, he's meh. And then kill somebody.
The next feud counts. You want to see him in the next feud, exactly.
But my question to you is, at least in this generation, who is the best heel out of these three? Kevin Owens, Edge, or Chris Jericho? And not Chris Jericho now, Chris Jericho from, what's it, 16, but his second run with WWE.
I hate to be honest. Right now, gun in my head, I would say Owens, and I'll tell you why. Edge, while I liked Edge, it took me a while to get to like Edge, and I think he didn't play the despicable heel in my eyes. I guess it always felt like a little bit of a work with him. A very talented guy, but I just never embraced his character. Jericho, who used to be one of my favorites of all time, who I've really soured on over the last 4 or 5 years, he flip-flopped. He did a lot of flip-flopping. So these guys who go good and then heel and then good and then heel, a lot of times, I don't know. To me, this guy, Owens, is just, you want it. Like you guys said, the emotional investment. I can't wait for the next feud. Back in the day, we had 10, 15, 20 of those guys that were just bad guys or played the bad guy role to the point where you just couldn't wait to see who they were with next.
You know, you could even, I didn't mean to cut you off, you could even go like 10 years ago where WWE had a stockpile of those kind of heels. You know, Umaga, and, you know, a lot of that went to Armando Estrada. Did such a great job of attracting heat for Umaga that you just, oh my God, you just wanted to, that was one of the last times you got excited to see John Cena feud with somebody. Is you're like, Jesus, you know, is anybody going to beat this guy? And then you see John Cena, it's like, good. Frickin' beat him already and shut up Estrada. You know, and you had Edge and Orton. And, you know, Edge still had a little bit of that whole Matt Hardy stigma to him. So there were still some people sour to him and that. And Orton was just a dick. I mean, you had, even on SmackDown, you had Mr. Kennedy and MVP. MVP, I think, was, you know, kind of a precursor to the kind of heels we have now, where he was still a little bit of the old school, but still a little bit of the cool heel. And I was just talking about this with a buddy of mine the other day. How much Mr. Kennedy how big he could have been in WWE. You know, anytime I see Anderson in TNA, and I'll just sit there and what could have been? You know, if he had just stayed off the roids. He got popped with that one, and that was it.
I really think it comes down to, I think if you look at the changing in wrestling over the last 20 years, one of the things that wrestling misses more now so than ever are managers.
Yes.
Not everybody has to be a movie star, Vince. You don't have to put the mic in front of everybody. You get Bobby Heenan, you get Jim Cornette, you get James J. Dillon. It's okay if the guy can't talk. That's what had Mystique to them, too. He's that tough lone wolf that you don't know what he's like because he doesn't talk. The other guy doesn't talk confirmed. Gary Hart was great with that back in the day in World Class. This generation desperately needs good, strong personality managers.
You know, if he was a heel and, you know, say if you could take, like, fantasy booking here from the late or mid to late 80s and today, Roman Reigns and Bobby Heenan.
Oh, perfect match.
Yeah,
perfect
absolutely.
Match. Any of them.
Yeah, Reigns needs somebody to talk for him. It's like crickets in the background, and I like Reigns, and you know, he's deadly on the mic, deadly, and yeah, he'd be perfect with a great heel manager.
You know, it'd even be, you know, just came to my mind. What about Roman Reigns if they turned him heel? What if they brought in, you know, Armando Estrada?
Paulie work with him.
Who?
Paulie.
You know, and that's, you know, to Hank's point, you know, the worst part is anybody wants, and that's where WWE's gotten, you know, in today's day and age, anybody talks about a manager, oh, Paul Heyman, oh, Vicky Guerrero. You know, I don't know. Would Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns work? I mean, do I even have to ask that question? But, I don't know. I just wish there was more options. You know, I don't know, like you guys said, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there were managers all over the place. Now,
you had Jimmy Hart, you had the Doctor Style Slick, you had Lou Albano, you had Freddie Blatz, you had the Grand Wizard. Everybody had their own little
Johnny
little
Valiant.
family. Johnny Valiant, absolutely. Gary
Jim-
Hart and
Gary Hart was great.
Gary Hart's one of the most underrated managers of all time. Everybody had their own little groups. You had about 4 or 5 guys, and you could do the talking for them when you needed to, and you had guys who could talk. They didn't, Flair didn't need JJ to do his talking for him, but sometimes Luger needed JJ to talk for him. So they knew their role. They knew what to do. No, they just it's a lost art. They should be training managers down in NXT besides wrestlers. They should be getting new faces in there.
I'd love to be a manager.
Bring them back.
I'd love to be, a buddy of mine wants to train to be a wrestler, and I've told him ever since he told me that, I'd love to go with you and be a manager. I've always, and I've said it a bunch of times on the show, I've always gravitated towards heels. And that's one thing that, that WWE desperately needs is somebody who likes being heel. I know a lot of them say they like being heels, but I don't know if there's Kevin Owens who thrives on it. And I don't know. I wish I could go down there and be a manager. I'd have a blast with it. I think people are asked all the time, and I couldn't agree more. It's a lot easier to make people hate you than it is to make them love you. And
Absolutely.
I would have a blast with it. I don't know if I have exactly the mic skills for it, but somebody get me down to NXT as a manager.
Yeah.
Evan, make it happen. You'll be down near WWE. Make it happen.
Oh, they just love me.
So, what's coming up this week on Legends TV?
I have a legendary female R&B group, the Mellow Moods. I have Carlton J. Smith, who's an R&B ambassador. He works all around the world. He's currently based out of Turkey. He was previously based out of Shanghai, China, originally from Harlem. I have a horror blogger, and I have Vinny the Guido, who is a smooth-talking heel wrestling indie manager, as we were just saying. So, Legends TV, Saturdays, 11 a.m. at madhousetv.com and archived at legendstvnyc.com. And if you don't mind, I just want to do one very quick plug. I'll be at WrestleCon with Greg Valentine and Tito Santana. And if anybody's interested in advance pre-sale tickets for autographs, go to rivalrychampionshipwrestling.com.
And he'll be there with Main Event Madness business cards.
Yes, I will be giving a Main Event Madness business card, and hopefully we'll get Greg and or Tito on the show at some point prior, at least one of them, and it's a lot of fun being on the road with guys like that, just sitting and talking about the old days. Hank would appreciate it. It's Greg's a lot of fun. Greg, one day we were in a hotel in L.A. and Greg was taking bumps in the hotel lobby. Like a big kid,
And he literally means on the road, Hank. They're driving from New York City to Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, we're actually driving from New York to Texas. Not Greg, the agent and myself. And, it's going to be fun. A road trip, like in all those road movies. Speaking of good movies, I saw this movie Maggie yesterday with Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter turning into a zombie. Surprisingly good, and Schwarzenegger is actually acting, crying, emoting, not blowing stuff up. So I recommend Maggie, folks. Yeah.
The madness is truly unleashed, from wrestling to movies to conventions. You never know.
It's like stream of consciousness. But anyway.
But
Hank, tell us about your website.
I'm sorry?
Tell us about your column and your website, Hank.
Oh, well, this week, as I said, I posted yesterday the 4 faces of WWE's history, who were the 4 faces of the company over time.
Let me guess.
Okay, let me hear you guys.
You said Austin, Bruno, Backlund, Pedro.
I have Bruno, Hogan, Austin, and Cena. And not that I like Cena at all, but these are guys who have transcended beyond the ring and have touched a chord outside of the WWE fan base. Their contributions over the years I was really hedging on Cena. Boy, let me tell you, it was really tough to put him in there. But you can't deny it. The guy's been the face of the company for 10 years. He's done a lot of good.
Cena's had tremendous matches the past year or two, and a lot of people won't give him that credit. Yeah. Backlund was champion like 37 years, though. I would have put Backlund on there. But
actually, you know what it was? But Bob was just. Here's my comparison to Backlund. Backlund is to wrestling what Larry Holmes was to boxing, because Backlund was in between Bruno and Hogan, and Larry Holmes was in between Tyson and Ali, basically. So they were both kind of that bland guy in the middle, and I did like Bob, respected him, great work, but he just never, I don't know. And now my next problem would.
The thing with Backlund, in 20 words or less, for people who didn't live through that era like we did, Backlund was great when he was in the ring with a great technician, like Greg Valentine, like a younger, thinner Adrian Adonis. Guys who could, Morocco when he was younger and thinner. Guys like that, Backlund was tremendous. But when you put Backlund in with the big, mechanical monsters, the huge guys that they always used to bring in, he was not that good, and many times Morocco or whoever was the Intercontinental champ, Patera, actually had better matches on the very same card. So yeah, Backlund was hit and miss, definitely. The
IC champ always used to be, the seven. The IC champ is always the workers' champion. Savage, Hart, Valentine, etc.
Morocco was tremendous. Patera, Patterson.
Yeah, absolutely.
These guys were all tremendous. Yeah.
And my next column is going to be
back then the belt meant a lot.
Oh, absolutely, it meant something. Next week's column is going to be focusing, ironically, on guys who were famous WWE Hall of Famers who've never won the WWF Championship. Piper, DiBiase bought it, but really not him. He didn't really win it. Ricky Steamboat. So I think a lot of people think like Kurt Hennig was the WWF champion. No, he never was. But these guys went on to have Hall of Fame careers. Why? Because they were great workers. They didn't need the title to make them great. You don't give a guy a title back then to give him a push. Unlike now, well, let's put the Miz. Let's put the belt on the Miz to make him important. No, not the case.
Yeah, I agree.
So, before we get ready to wrap up here, guys, since I got you both on here, let's talk about it. WWE is bringing in a Cruiserweight show. They're bringing together 32 of the top Cruiserweights from around the world and doing a 10-week, tournament. Do you guys feel that this could be, and I'll go to you, Hank, first, do you feel that this could be the beginning of the Cruiserweight division coming back? And if so, do you think we should have a new Cruiserweight championship?
Yes on both. I would love to see it happen. Triple H sees the fact that they may be working with other federations on this. I know they reached out to Lucha Underground recently to try to do a working agreement, and that fell through. Wouldn't it shock me if we see Prince Puma show up in the WWE for this?
I think it's a tremendous idea, but I think it has the same risk of, like on TNA, where you just have guys doing 37 high spots, and it feels kind of, as entertaining as it may be, it feels kind of meaningless. If you had guys like back in the day, like Ultimo Dragon, who you're watching the match and it feels like it means something, I think it has the potential. And again, the belt, people have to care about it. I mean, what does the belt mean when all is said and done if it changes every 4 weeks? So it remains to be seen if it's just content for the network or it's going to be meaningful. But I think if it gives great smaller guys a chance to showcase themselves, it's an excellent idea anyway.
What if WWE does the unthinkable? And no, I don't mean actually have good programming. What do you think if WWE does the unthinkable and you see some guys from TNA come in?
Well, if they were smart, they would do an invasion angle right. Vince's, idea is always he's so insecure that, when they did it with WCW, of course, they buried these guys. And, I think it would be, if you had ROH or TNA invade WWE, it would be hot. Even if you did it NXT invading WWE, and they handled it right. I mean, WWE, a while back, they turned Canada into our enemy. So anything that's booked right can work, I mean, as absurd as that was, it worked,
You got two guys working in NXT that could cause such a feud with an NXT takeover, and that's Austin Aries and Samoa Joe. Why they are working down in TNA and NXT is beyond me, especially Samoa Joe for as long as he's been down there. They talked about the Balor Club coming in. Could be a nice time for that to happen.
Absolutely.
I guess the talk is right now that Samoa Joe is coming up post-Mania. Maybe as soon as the post-Mania Raw.
You ever think they just keep these guys down there because they could pay them less?
Wouldn't surprise me. I know Austin Aries is down there because they want to start doing some big tours like they do for the main roster, and they want to have some names on, with the brand, and I know that's one reason Austin Aries is in NXT.
Okay.
But
He's a very good heel, too. He's a very good heel. He can really rip people to shreds on the mic. I like him.
Austin Aries is one of my favorite wrestlers of the past 10 or so years. Tremendous. The guy I liked more than anybody, except maybe Nakamura, was Nigel McGuinness. Nigel McGuinness was tremendous.
What a shame. He lost, he got out of business too early because of an injury, but what a talent.
When he wrestled Daniel Bryan for ROH, which I saw live 4 times, to me, that was the Dory Funk Jack Briscoe. That was the Flash Steamboat of this era. It was such a high level wrestling elevated to an art form. And the irony of the whole Daniel Bryan thing is I'm watching that, and it was incredibly emotional, and I said to myself, he didn't have one match in WWE as good as him and Nigel. I'm sorry. Am I right?
No. I had stuff with him and AJ in like a high school gym and that they did amazing work in. One of the best matches I'd ever seen. It's a shame ROH didn't get the funding for TV that it has now 7 years ago. Because the roster they could have had, they would have pushed Vince to the wall. I believe it in my heart of hearts.
Oh, yeah.
ROH circa 2008, I brought them into The Wrestler as associate producer of the movie. And the roster that they had was as good as any roster, I would say, in the history of wrestling, except maybe the NWA mid-'80s when you had the Horsemen and Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express. And I mean, that was, I don't think you're ever going to touch that. But that ROH roster, especially with all the Japanese guys in and out, Morishima and everybody, it was unbelievable. I mean, I went to these cards in New York, and I'm just like, what's better than this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But all right, guys, so awesome show. Hank, you said you are going to be around for Sunday?
I definitely will, yes.
All right, sounds great. We got
Look forward to it.
we have our WWE Fastlane pregame show that'll start at 5 p.m. Eastern on wrestling-news.net. I'll be there, obviously. Mark will be there for an amount of time to be determined. Aaron Ramadanov from pwpnation.com will be there. Kurt, you guys heard from last week, will be with us. Hank's going to be with us. And I'm working on trying to get a couple more guys. We're going to have a big panel for this. And then next week, guys, stay tuned to facebook.com/Main Event Madness. I'm hoping by the time I come on the air on Sunday, I'm hoping I have an answer. Working on a few big, at least one big interview for next week, which next week is a show that I hold a little bit close to my heart. Next week is Main Event Madness 2-year anniversary show, and coincidentally, the 50th show under the Main Event Madness banner, and coincidentally, the 90th show I have ever done. So somehow these all lined up in one. I'm happy because I only have to acknowledge them one time and not have to bore people with it. But so next Wednesday is going to be a 3-hour show, which means Evan gets 3 hours to bash WWE. No, I'm just kidding. But
You missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't you dare miss this match. Who used to say that, Hank?
What was that?
You missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't you dare miss this show, this match. Who used to say that?
I don't remember. You got me on that one.
Ernie Ladd.
Ernie Cat Ladd.
That's right.
Absolutely. With the injured thumb. I think he still has tape on it.
That's right. Ernie Ladd. I love that guy.
And years later, now Evan Ginsberg says it each and every week here on Main Event Madness.
People think I made that line up, so I use it all the time.
Hey, listen, the Nature Boy's been reused. You get to reuse that one.
That's right, because nobody remembers that one, but I remember. So.
But looking forward to it for sure. Next week, like I said, our pregame show, WWE Fastlane pregame show, live Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be here next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern for 3 hours, working on a big interview that you guys will utterly and thoroughly enjoy, I guarantee you. Like I said, hopefully by the time I come on the air on Sunday, I'll have some kind of answer about that. And that's pretty much it. Please, if you guys could be so kind, give me a follow on Twitter. I'm currently... Let's go to an official check. 20 followers away from 5,000 Twitter followers. So, all these milestones are piling up together at the same time. And would really appreciate a follow, guys, if you guys want to follow and get the latest news on the show. Also, follow my co-host, The Mark Madison, on Twitter, at The Mark Madison. Evan Ginsberg at Evan_Ginsberg, EVAN_GINZBURG. And, of course, Legends TV every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, MadhouseTV.com. Weekly archives, at LegendsTVNYC.com. Did I do that right this time without stuttering?
That's at LegendsTVNYC.com, that's right.
Finally, it only took me 2 years. And that's pretty much going to do it. Follow us or like us on Facebook, facebook.com/maineventmadness. Hank will have a Twitter handle soon, hopefully.
I'm working on that.
Then we can add to our shameless list of shilling. And, yeah, that's pretty much all we got, guys. Lord willing, we will be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern and Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern for our pregame show. Hank, it was fun, man. Look forward to having you back on Sunday.
Oh, it was so much fun. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks for taking the time out to be interested and to even come on. Really appreciate it. And Evan.
I'm here.
I'm sure we'll talk. We always do.
Absolutely. It's always an honor and a pleasure being on the show. And fans, tell your friends it's the best in wrestling radio right here. The Curry Man, John Curry. There you go.
Thank you, kind sir.
Yeah.
Always good to hear some kind words from your mentor. Really appreciate it. But I'm rambling, which means it's time for me to shut up and head out for a 4-day break. So we'll catch you guys all around here on Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern, wrestling-news.net. WWE Fastlane, we're going to be your lead-in. The hell with the pregame or the pre-show on WWE. This is the place you want to be, wrestling-news.net. Take it easy, guys. We'll catch you next week. The preceding broadcast was an MEM Network production. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you missed a part or all of tonight's show, visit Spreaker.com/show/maineventmadness or PWPNation.com. Also, every week, we stream live on wrestling-news.net. And for the latest news on the show, like us on Facebook at facebook.com/maineventmadness. Be sure to catch us back here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're Main Event Madness. Madness Unleashed. Have a good one, everybody. So long.